groovy.
Hello, and welcome back to another cult horror movie review. It's time to dive into the deep, dark realm of Vincent Price movies once more, who stars as the Abominable Dr. Phibes, a weird and unique mix of dark comedy and horror, which totally deserves its status as a cult horror classic. But just before we get going, if there's a cult horror movie you'd like me to review, just leave me a comment down below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, let me know your thoughts and feelings on the Abominable Dr. Phibes. While it was released in the early 70s, it feels a lot like it could have been released in the mid to late 60s. By that time, Vincent Price had become a household name for horror and a very firmly established figure in the genre. This is basically a revenge story. Nothing out of the ordinary there, we've seen tons of them. Revenge tales are as old as time itself. So what makes this British film stand out from the rest? Especially since by that time, the golden era of Vincent Price and horror movies was pretty much over at this point. But that did not stop Price from doing what he does best and play a creepy organist called Dr. Anton Phibes. He is unable to speak after barely surviving a car accident, which left him terribly scarred. His beautiful wife, who he was so in love with, dies during a surgical procedure, so Phibes decides to get his revenge on the doctors and nurse who supposedly killed the love of his life, in pretty original ways, if you ask me. The manners in which the victims are murdered are inspired by the 10 plagues of Egypt from the Old Testament, each time the script adding a little updated twist to it. But the Abominable Dr. Phibes also makes an impression on its viewers with the punchy and colorful set pieces and some original costume designs. Vincent Price really hammers down on this futuristic looking pipe organ which glows red and can go up and down into another room. It's weird because it feels campy and polished at the same time. The rest of the cast is also good, although I must say that none of the characters were particularly memorable. Heck, Dr. Phibes even has a band of mechanical musicians which play 1920s jazz-inspired music, and that's something I wanted to get into. Whether it's the hard-hitting organ which Phibes plays, or the band songs I just mentioned, the person in charge of the score made some very exciting song choices which really helped to make the film memorable. Once again, it's Price who steals the show, even though he can't actually talk with his mouth in this role. Although he's an evil character, you can't help but have a bit of sympathy for him. Under the thick layers of campy horror and dark comedy, this is also a love story. We follow a very tortured soul who desires nothing more than to reunite with his deceased wife in the beyond, although that does not excuse him from killing all those people. In fact, each time Phibes crosses another doctor off his list, he burns what appears to be some sort of a wax statue of the person and places an amulet around their necks. Maybe it's just my interpretation, but those scenes really reminded me of Price's earlier work on House of Wax, where we also see a bunch of statues burning down to the ground. But if you think Dr. Phibes is going to stop there, well, you are darn wrong. I found out a sequel was released a year later, which I wouldn't mind checking out. But overall, this film was an enjoyable and very decent horror comedy. It's another notable addition to Vincent Price's long collection of great horror movies, so go check it out.